KSJE is supported by the University of Denver Graduate School of Social Work Four Corners program in Durango, accepting applications for the Advanced Standing MSW program beginning July 2023. Students with a bachelor's degree in social work are eligible for the one-year program. Stipends in child welfare, opioid workforce expansion, and Native American tuition support to eligible students are available. Find out more at du.edu/socialwork. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center. The most important ingredients to sustaining health and wellness are the resources and tools that help you live a vibrant and healthy life. At San Juan Regional Medical Center, the goal is to promote health by making sure those resources are available. Find the path to the best life at lifebetterhere.com. San Juan Regional Medical Center. Better is our mission, improving lives through personalized health and care. 12 minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Thursday morning, the 19th day of January, 2023. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin. Thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM, of course, over the air here in San Juan County, New Mexico. In Durango, Colorado, you can tune us in, of course, at 103.3 FM, and anywhere else on the planet, just go to our website to tune in, KSJE.com. We also want to welcome our viewers who are joining us this morning. This is a community-supported visual radio station, so good morning and welcome to our viewers who are watching the program, which is streaming out live to the KSJE Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and our Twitter account. So welcome aboard, everyone. We're glad that you are here. Our main topic of conversation this morning, mental health here in San Juan County and the work that the San Juan County Sheriff's Office is doing, along with the new Mental Health Wellness Center is doing here in the county. We'll talk about that and much, much more in the next few moments right here on KSJE. And then later on this morning at 8:50 a.m., I hope you'll tune in, of course, and stay tuned for the big event that's coming up, of course, which is the Night to Shine event coming up on February 10th here in Farmington. We'll have some details to pass along about that coming up today, 8:50 a.m. right here on KSJE. Next hour, it's Roving with the Arts, our classical music program, of course. Mick Hess is playing music from Mozart this morning. And then at 9:30 today, it is our Native Art Voices of the Four Corners program. Vinaya Yazi is speaking with local real estate agent Alyssa Begay today on her program. That's coming up today, 9:30 right here on KSJE Radio. Don't forget, you can also connect with us on our Instagram page, and if you're a podcast person, this program, like many other local programs here, are available as podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts, places like iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Pandora. Just subscribe to KSJE. We always tell you that visual radio can take you places. Of course, we've had some snow here, but there's also some snow in the Denver area. We'll take a look up there just a few moments ago. A bright sunny morning with some freshly fallen snow in the Denver area. That's a great scene of the city of Denver there this morning. Here at home, here's our weather forecast for today. We're expecting a partly sunny day today. Still windy, still cold, 34 for high in Farmington. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 24 degrees. Another chance of rain or snow showers tomorrow. In fact, the forecast calls for a 70% chance with a high tomorrow of 34 degrees on Friday, 19 degrees Friday night, and then partly sunny skies again for Saturday, 33 for a high, 33 again with more sunshine on Sunday, and again partly sunny skies with a high of 33 degrees on Monday with overnight lows mostly in the teens. Well, let me introduce my guests who are here with us this morning, as I mentioned, representing the San Juan County Sheriff's Department, talking about their efforts with mental health here in the community. David Smith is here. He is the Behavioral Health Deputy here at the Sheriff's Office. Deputy Smith, good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning. Thank you.
You bet. Good to have you here. Also joining us here in the studio, Tim Smith is here. He is a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Good to have you here as well. And another lieutenant here in the studio with us this morning is Lieutenant Jason Sherman from the Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Sherman, good morning to you.
Good morning, Scott.
Great to have all of you here this morning to talk a bit about this really important issue and the work that the county and the Sheriff's Office is doing to address it. And I guess I want to start off with you, Deputy Smith, a little bit about your job, which is kind of relatively new to the department, correct? Because your focus really is on behavioral health out in the community, correct?
Yes, that's correct. This position's about 2 years now. And one of the things, this is funded through a biz grant with the state. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to do this. But my job is to dedicate my full time during the work week to helping consumers and families who are having mental health crisis, be it substance abuse crisis, or even exhaustive, where people a long time have been dealing with issues, no money, no housing, things like that. And I go out and I try to engage those individuals to guide them to resources, guide them to providers in our community to help assist them and get them to where they're able to learn those coping skills.
Very good. And so you mentioned this is grant funded, and so hopefully the funds are coming in for a little while longer as well, and maybe we'll renew. I mean, what's the future look like? Do we know?
We've got about another 2 years on the grant currently, and then after that, there are talks of continuing being able to fund the position beyond that. That's our goal. We'd like to have this be a full-time thing where we're able to provide these services. As I said, it's kind of all those things. That's why we're working so hard trying to keep this going. Right.
And I'm sure there's a lot of data that you're collecting, too, that can help maybe justify the position and the resources, right, that the county and the sheriff's office is putting towards this issue?
Yes. A lot of the stuff where I'm working with our mental wellness resource center, they're keeping track of that, finding where our gaps are, where we're needing to make improvements and continue to work up towards that. So.
Got you. And let me talk to our lieutenants who are here about the training that's going on too at the department and elsewhere. Lieutenant Sherman, let me start with you a little bit about kind of some of the training that's being done and offered to your deputies out in the streets.
Yeah, so a lot of where our training comes from, it gets established kind of through a state legislation that was passed in 2011. During that time, it was House Bill 93, and that kind of set a minimum standard of what would be expected of law enforcement when it comes to, crisis intervention, de-escalation, and dealing with people with kind of mental illness and mental impairment. So that established that in our basic academy, we have to have 40 hours of basic academy training to include those, but also including actual role play practicum, where they're actually going out. We bring people in to be actors for our cadets to get that training, to get some of the real life experience. And then with it put another minimum standard of 2 hours per biennium cycle, which is our update training that law enforcement does every 2 years. So with that, through the years, that kind of put the minimum standard. And right now, our basic academy, we do 56 hours, and that includes 4 full days of nothing but our scenario-based training, getting the cadets experience in dealing with tough situations and getting them to work through, obviously, when feasible, using de-escalation techniques and being able to speak to people. For us in our biennium cycle, we do 5 hours every 2 years, and that's kind of our minimum standard. Even though the state puts a requirement of 2, we do at least 5, and that also includes scenario-based training for that as well. Kind of on the other side, so with the sheriff's office, our crisis negotiation team is also part of our crisis intervention team, and with that we get going. To be a crisis negotiator, you have to have a 40-hour basic crisis negotiation course. So another 40 hours of training on top of that, and the same for the crisis intervention side. It's an additional 40-hour more. It's called a basic, but it's a little bit more advanced than what the basic academy is going to be. And then for our crisis negotiation team and crisis intervention team, we actually do 10 hours of training per month right now that we've been able to get, and it's scenario-based and just working through a lot of problems. So.
Right. And so it sounds like the local sheriff's office is doing more training than the state requires in this area and probably some others as well.
Yes.
From what you're saying. Yeah. And Lieutenant Smith, let me turn to you a little more about that as well, because we talked before we came on the air this morning a bit about how when any law enforcement, it seems, encounters an individual, whether they've broken the law or they're just having a rough day or what have you, many times mental health issues come up, and in order to relate to that and to address that. I guess it's really important to A, have this training, and then B, have the resources that we now do have here in San Juan County, at least through the Resource Center, to kind of send these folks to. But kind of walk us through that a little bit, would you?
So the Resource Center is huge, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. As far as the Sheriff's Office dealing with people in crisis like this, we've been doing it for years. My first, Jason was talking about training. I remember going through the academy, and I think I had a grand total of 4 hours of how to deal with people that were in some sort of mental crisis. So we've come a long way.
How many years ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
You would ask a really hard question this morning.
It's been a while. We could say that.
So it was here at the college, actually.
Okay.
And that was 18 years ago.
Okay.
That I was, no, 19. 19. I'm so old I'm forgetting how long ago. It was 19 years ago that I was here learning
With
this
4
stuff.
hours of this type of
Just
training.
4 hours,
Okay.
yeah. And our role players were our fellow cadets. So you can imagine a bunch of people who don't know much about mental health trying to portray it. Wasn't
Sure.
the best training we could have had at the time. So that House Bill 93, that was from the 2011 legislative cycle. And I will kind of smooth that a little bit. That's interactions with persons with mental impairments. A lot of people will label that as House Bill 93, but almost every legislative session we have a different House Bill 93. So it can lead to some confusion there. But we really started working on how to talk to people, which may not come through from this interview, but we really focused on that initially. And it really wasn't probably until about 2011, 2012 that we actually got the good classes really focusing and drilling down on people with mental illness or mental impairments or in just an emotional crisis. So we've come a long way.
Right, and I appreciate that. And as we've mentioned too, when someone is in some type of crisis, or you've been called to the scene of whatever, either maybe someone's accused of a burglary or what have you, or some other type of situation, and it's important that you're able to identify, I guess, what's going on, and B, is that person in some kind of a crisis to be able to help that person, right?
So we don't really train our guys to diagnose.
Sure.
We're not trying to get a street diagnosis, but we're going to see we have your run-of-the-mill person who maybe made some bad choices, or we have someone who is dealing with something a little extra on board, and we're going to approach that slightly differently, given safety and the time and the opportunity to not have to go hands-on with somebody. So given the time, we're going to give them time to de-escalate and come to a more rational level if we can get there.
Right. Deputy Smith, let me come back to you a little bit about your job, because you're kind of on that front line, I guess, too, a little bit, right, of dealing with these individuals. And so walk us through kind of what we're talking about here.
Well, I typically get involved is that I can go out, and I will go out with our deputies on these calls if they feel that it's somebody that is possibly in crisis. I'll get calls in the field saying, hey, can you come meet this guy? They really need some resources, and we get there. And the job of our deputies on the street is what they're going to do is they're going to look at those behaviors. We recognize behaviors in individuals. As Lieutenant Smith said, we don't diagnose out there. We don't try to guess what they're going to have, what an individual could be diagnosed with. We look at the behaviors and we address those behaviors, and then we try to find. They'll get a hold of me, I come out, I'll talk with that individual, and what we're seeing is what do we have available to a person, what can we set them up for future success? Because that's really our goal, is that if this can be a one and done, no longer having to contact law enforcement, that's a win for us. It allows us to focus on more important calls for service, and a lot of the times, though, I'm able then afterward to continue to follow up where our patrol deputies can't follow up with an individual. I'm able to go out, continue to check in on that person and check to see who they are and build a relationship with them so that they understand that just because law enforcement shows up, we're not there to fight with them. We're not there to do that. We actually do really care, and we want to get them to the best next step possible, be it either, and sometimes unfortunately it does involve us having to take individuals to jail for their crimes, but also then continuing to work with them so that when they are released, can we find them services locally and people who can support them and help build their support system up.
Gotcha. And I was going to ask you about that too, because sometimes it is, maybe the option is jail, but with other help at the jail, right? They offer some resources as well, do they not, for their
Correct.
folks who were there?
Yes, the jail does have, they have staffing there, and so individuals who are having either a mental health crisis can speak to individuals there. Our jail does a really good job. They have a lot of people available. Individuals who want to seek services there can continue to seek those services while they are incarcerated.
Very good. Let me come back to Lieutenant Sherman a little bit about the Mental Wellness Resource Center, which is a relatively new addition to the mix here in San Juan County. And of course, it's open to everyone, not just folks referred to from the Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement entities here in the county. But it's been a good addition, I guess, to the mix, right, of being able to refer individuals to the various mental health services that we have here in the area?
Yeah, most definitely. It's that program is also part of the grant that David's position is under, and it brought a resource center, a place where law enforcement, because again we're having limited interactions with these people. We're not doctors, we're not counselors. Sometimes we wear those hats of those positions sometimes to a very limited end, but we're able to get a place, because before it's like, all right, let's go through this sheet and let's see what's available. Okay, you're having this kind of trouble. Let's see if we can, direct you over to this place. And now it's given law enforcement a place where if we're dealing with someone, it's like, hey, let's get you over to this place. You can talk with someone who's, has more abilities and more time to sit down and really see what's going on with you in these situations and figure out what the best course of action is going to be and what services are going to be best for you. And so even the Resource Center has reached out to, partner with other entities in the community of tell us what you do so we know where to direct people to. That's their sole purpose, is to get in. All law enforcement can use it, but anybody can walk in during their business hours and they can go and see what is going to be best for them.
Right. And again, we were talking before we came on the air this morning a little bit about how maybe a lot of families aren't aware yet of the Resource Center and the resources that it has. And Lieutenant Smith, talk to me a little bit about getting the word out to maybe some of these families who are dealing with a family member, a loved one who's maybe having some mental health crises or issues from time to time. And it's not that they're calling you guys to come and deal with it, but they need to know maybe what they can do on their own.
Certainly. Yeah, the families also can experience a crisis just dealing with somebody who has mental illness. The behaviors and everything, it can take its toll, just like it can take your toll on someone who's dealing with a loved one who's suffering with a long, just regular physical illness. We call it an exhaustion crisis. There's resources for the families as well. They're more than welcome at the Wellness Center. There's a lot of peer counseling available, so they can all get in a group with other people who deal with the same thing, and they can relate to one another. They have folks there that can help give them ideas and tools and just extra resources to help them get through this crisis just as well as their loved ones.
Right. And the issue, I guess, too, is that right now it seems if someone's having a crisis or a problem, a lot of times these individuals just show up at the emergency department, at the hospital. They are the ones that are having to deal maybe with the front lines of some of this.
Yes, the
these
ER
issues.
ends up being, the hospital ends up being the catch-all. A lot of it is because they are a one-stop shop and they're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. If something's going on, you can always go to the hospital. It would be nice if we can get some sort of, even if it's a drop-in shelter or some kind of mental health services available around the clock like that. Because I've gone to calls where it could be 6 in the morning or it can be 3 in the morning.
And what
mental
do you do?
Health, that's exactly it. We deal with it. We get through them as best we can, and we try to convince people that maybe their best option is the hospital, at least for the short term.
Right. Deputy Smith, I mean, that would certainly be another feather in the cap of San Juan County if we had a resource like that.
Having some sort of drop-in crisis stabilization center would be great, where we have staff that is properly trained to deal with an individual in crisis. Our ER is overwhelmed right now. I mean, I've worked with them and they've worked with me, and we'd really like to try to find a way. I go over there and I've built relationships with staff so that we can try to work with them and say, here's what our needs are. You know, it's not unheard of for me to show up with an individual in crisis at the ER and have that individual have me come back with them, and the doctor walk in like, why are you here? And I have to explain to them, I'm here as an advocate for this individual. They trust me to be able to help push them forward so that we can explain what's going on, and they're able to actually then get to work with medical staff to move forward. I mean, a lot of the individuals out there who are in crisis have got diagnoses, and they have had difficult times going in. They may not like the ER, they may not like their doctors and things like that, and so we have to try to guide them and say, hey, here's what we've got available to you, what can we do? And one important factor of going to the resource center for individuals is that we don't know what services you need unless you come in and ask for them. The staff is then able to document that and show, hey, we have an increased need for this, and we can now further expand our goals in the county to help individuals and to meet the needs of what our community wants.
Got you. And let's share the information about the Resource Center, where it's located,
Yeah.
and how folks can get there.
Yeah, the Resource Center is located on the corner. It's 814 West Maple in Farmington. It's actually directly across the street from the ER at the hospital there. So if you go to the corner there, it's right there on that corner. You'll see it. It has a big sign on the door, and it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Staff is there. You can also give them you're able to access and connect, go to the San Juan County Connect.net and go there and check, find their website for that.
Got you. And it's, again, been open for a while now, and I think the word is getting out, and I think more folks are being made available to those services, and they're finding out about those
Yes.
services, taking advantage of them. Is
Yes,
what I'm
they
trying
just
to say.
celebrated. It's just over 2 years now where they've been open, and they're continuing. They've actually increased their staff now. They used to have just 2 people who could help out. They've got 3 now. They just added a new individual, and it's a great place. They'll come in. I work with them very closely. Individuals who they'll call me regarding individuals who come in and are just seeking someone, needing to talk to someone. Kind of what happens. A lot of times I get family members do the same thing. So they're available, and they're more than willing and happy to help anybody who comes in.
Right. And again, another feather in the cap for San Juan County to be able to offer this to residents and visitors alike who are here in the county. Lieutenant Sherman, let me come back to you a little bit and ask about the issue of mental illness and mental wellness. It's something that, we're still, I don't think, talking enough about it, and it still seems to have the stigma attached to it, which it shouldn't have. But I think the word is getting out, and I think more folks are becoming aware of their own mental health and maybe the mental health of loved ones, and to go and reach out for assistance and to say, I think I need to take a break, or I need to reach out to someone who can help me through whatever it is that I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's, mental health has always been one of those things that's been kind of the unspoken thing that we just don't talk about that. But there are a lot of programs that are bringing that to light and letting people know that, it's okay to not be okay. That's kind of the mental health, triumph, scream it from the rooftop that it's okay to not be okay, and that there are places that you can go and get help. But it's difficult sometimes. There is still a stigma of it. There's, and for whatever reason, people, there's shame that they have because of what their family's going through. But there's so many good people, and I think social media has a lot to do with it. And people who are experiencing that, and families who are experiencing mental health troubles in their own home, are able to let people know, like, this is what it looks like, but we're okay with it, and here's the things that we're doing to make do. And that not just within our regular community, but law enforcement, first responders. That's always been a very, very large stigma. Give a little plug to 2 of our a captain and a lieutenant and a retired sergeant from the sheriff's office who are still crossing the Atlantic Ocean in the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge they're rowing for first responder mental health awareness.
Right. Go Team Guardian. We have to say that.
Go Team Guardian. 10 years ago, you wouldn't ever have heard of that because the stigma that it carries, but
Right.
it's more socially acceptable now to recognize that people sometimes are dealing with stuff that is beyond their control.
Very true. And I'll put a plug in, too, because I had the great honor of talking to Mark from the middle of the ocean on Saturday. And it's on our Facebook and YouTube channels and Twitter pages. If you guys would like to watch that as well, we invite you to do that. But it's amazing that they've been out there since December 12th, rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. And they are scheduled to land at Antigua later on this month, and we're very excited for them. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely.
And it's a great focus on the issue that we're talking about this morning, because it affects not just private citizens and other individuals, but first responders as well. And it's really important to bring them into the conversation. Deputy Smith, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I think one of the things talking about that and bringing that stigma forth is that it used to be anyone with a mental health issue, if you used to watch old TV shows and everything like that, everyone was considered violent. Those sort of things like that. And now you can actually get on, you go to YouTube, you go and you see commercials now for individuals who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and they're able to say, I am living a normal life thanks to treatment and medications, where you wouldn't have seen that before. And so it's really important people understand we recognize that and realize that these individuals, that crisis shouldn't define them going forward. It should, getting the proper, be it medications and treatment and talking to people, really help out individuals and allow them to be able to cope and deal with what's going on in their lives. And then educating people, we remove that stigma from mental health. And I'm big on that. I've gone and I've talked to families who have lived with an individual, and I've provided them with information, education on it, and I've had them go, I never knew that. That explains so much. Because they as we said, they like to keep it secret. It wasn't, we don't talk about that, but educating each other, and it really does help people.
Right. And the important, I guess, component of that is with the treatment and maybe medication, depending on what's going on. And I guess, Lieutenant Smith, I'll turn to you. If left untreated, I mean, these things can spiral out of control in some cases, can they not? And become a really big concern and problem.
Correct. One of the things we had, way long ago, up to about the late 60s, early 70s, was, if you had, here's crazy Uncle Joe who doesn't quite act normal, you ship him off to a sanitarium somewhere, and you kind of forget about him. There's treatments you get there, but how effective that was is, that's up for debate. But when those facilities closed, they got pushed back out on the families. Some of those people are among our homeless population at this point. So it's really hard to hold a job when you don't act, quote, normal. So that definitely affects your ability to have a fulfilled life and to just basically function in normal society. And unfortunately, that is the result of a lot of untreated mental illness.
Right. And I think the idea was that we don't want to lock these people away and out of sight, out of mind type of thing. We want them to be members of society and contribute if they can and be able to help them. And that was the whole idea, right?
That's the whole idea. The whole goal, well, part of our CAT thing is we want to lessen your contact with us. We want you to get help. We want to connect you with those resources to have as normal life as you can and to be able to function and enjoy yourself.
Right. Very good. And Lieutenant Sherman, let me come back to you a little bit. Again, looking forward as to where we go from here. We've talked a little bit about the extra training that is provided to deputies and officers at the San Juan County Sheriff's Office and others. Is this something that maybe the rest of the state could start doing? I mean, is this something that you find when you talk to some of your colleagues in other offices that, this is what we're doing here in San Juan County? Can we do the same thing in Cibola County, McKinley County, Rio Arriba County, things along that line? Or maybe they are.
Yeah, so kind of as we were really developing our crisis intervention team, we leaned on a lot of bigger agencies. We're not the largest law enforcement agency in all of New Mexico. So we leaned on them to kind of see what were you guys, what they were doing, what was working, what's not working. And on that same token, we have reached out over the years to, and they've reached out to us, some of the smaller agencies around. Currently our sheriff is the president of the New Mexico Sheriff's Association, and mental health awareness and treatment and responding to it has always been a very large part of Sheriff Ferrari's goals for our county and for our agency. So he takes that out, and we answer a lot of questions for other agencies. We do really good up here. I think the training that we put on as well as what we receive is top of the state, and that includes all the other agencies around here. Farmington PD does a lot, Aztec PD, Bloomfield PD, and we all work together. We all train together. We participate in the same programs, and that brings a lot of continuity in our area too. But absolutely, our ultimate goal is to help anybody in whatever way we can, and if that's helping another law enforcement agency, then we're all about it, because the better we are, the better our communities are going to be.
Right. And we're just about out of time, gentlemen, this morning, but I wanted to go back to Deputy Smith a little bit about what we talked about earlier too. Is it just the relationship between the community and law enforcement here seems to be very positive, which is a good thing. It's not the same. It's not that way in other parts of the country, unfortunately. But I think that's helpful when we're talking about things like this. That when someone who's having a mental health crisis sees a deputy approaching them, they respect that person. I think they know that they're there to help, and that sets things off on a positive step where it could be very negative in other places, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, our community is great here. A lot of people, they reach out to us, they want to talk to us, and we as an agency work really hard to be able to keep those standards high for individuals. That's really helpful to me, having the community, because now I can go to family and I can get information from them that I'm able to share with our deputies and local agencies to help in a crisis and hopefully de-escalate that individual, something that we can talk to them about that brings them back down, because in those states people are highly emotional. We got to get them rational, and having that information, being able to work with families to learn how to work with their loved ones is really important for us, and it's extremely helpful to help keep those interactions to a minimum use of force if we need to.
And I would say a certain level of trust.
Yes.
With you and the sheriff's office,
yes.
By extension.
Yeah, trust is extremely important with it. When they know that we're there, or talking to a family member and letting them know our primary goal, even though their loved one went to jail, we want to work to continue. Let's work and see what services we can get to. What can we do? Encourage them to help us if they are the victim of a crime committed by a loved one. Help us guide where that goes. They can ultimately have the ultimate power in how that's resolved. And they can really work with us and work with our DA's office to help prosecute that, so that their loved one sees a minimum amount of jail time and maybe is able to get sent for treatment.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate you all coming in. Before we go, Deputy Smith, one more time, the Mental Wellness Resource Center. Again, it's located across from the emergency room.
Yes, 814 West Maple in Farmington.
Okay, there you go. And it's open Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Okay, excellent. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for coming in this morning. Really important topic. I'm glad that you were here. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My guest this morning from the San Juan County Sheriff's Office with me here on KSJE. KSJE is supported by the Farmington Civic Center, bringing the Simon and Garfunkel story back to the stage after sold-out tours around the world. The nostalgic multimedia experience and a full live band perform all the hits, including Mrs. Robinson, Cecilia, Homeward Bound, and many more. Simon and Garfunkel story at the Farmington Civic Center, Tuesday, January 24th at 7:30 p.m. Find out more at fmtn.org/show.